So, picture this Sunday dinner, fancy table, candles, the whole scene. And my dad, yeah, the man whose company I built with my own hands, hands the entire thing over to my brother Aaron and his manipulative fiancée, Genesis. I mean, after years of blood, sweat, and 14-hour days, he just gives it away. But here's the thing, I didn't freak out. I didn't beg. I packed up quietly, and I started plotting. And trust me, what comes next? Chaos? Suspense? And, well, a little revenge. I was sitting there at the mahogany dining table my mom had refinished by hand just a few months before she died. And I swear my head was about to split open. I'd been running myself into the ground for 6 years. Straight 14-hour days, 7 days a week, and my body was screaming for rest. But Dad, William, he made it clear this family dinner was mandatory. He wouldn't even tell me what we were celebrating. Just, you need to be here to stay in good standing with the family. That phrase should have been my first red flag. It was cold, corporate speak. Not a fatherly suggestion. He'd become the chairman of the board in my life. Nothing more. I glanced across at Aaron. At 29, he still looked like someone who'd never pulled an all-nighter over payroll. Someone who hadn't seen the grind. He was swirling his wine, probably on the company card, whispering something to Genesis. She was giggling this sharp, grating sound, and I swear it sliced through my already throbbing skull. Genesis. She was 26, some sort of brand ambiguity consultant or whatever that meant. And she'd been in Aaron's life for 6 months. In that short time, she'd managed to alienate the warehouse manager, insult HR, and somehow convince Dad that the office decor was stifling everyone's aura. Dad's booming voice cut through my thoughts. Valentina, you haven't touched your steak. I barely looked at him. My fork trembled slightly in my hand. I'd spent the last 3 nights at the distribution center fixing a routing error caused by the night shift manager. I was just exhausted. I'm not feeling well. Dad, I said softly, trying to keep my voice even. Exhaustion is a mindset, Genesis chimed in, her smile saccharine, her tone like she was teaching a toddler. You really should try manifestation, Valentina. The universe provides. I gripped my fork tighter, knuckles white. Manifestation doesn't schedule trucks or negotiate fuel surcharges, Genesis. Hard work does. Now, Dad interrupted, raising a hand. Let's not bicker. Tonight is a night of joy, a night of looking forward. He tapped his knife against his glass. The sound rang sharp, piercing, silencing the room. Even the air seemed to hush. I have an announcement. He looked at Aaron with this warmth I hadn't seen in years. My chest pounded. This had to be it. Finally, after 10 years of sacrifices, skipped vacations, ruined relationships, all the work I had done, Dad was going to recognize it. He was going to step down, and I would finally be named CEO. I straightened up, ignoring the migraine, ready to accept what I had earned. But then he said it. It is traditional for the business to stay in the male line, to carry the name forward with strength. The room went cold. My stomach dropped, and then, like a punch I didn't see coming, he beamed and said, effective the 1st of the month, I am stepping down as CEO, and my son Aaron will be taking the helm. Aaron pretended to be surprised, buttoning his suit jacket. Genesis clapped, looking around as if waiting for applause that never came. I sat there, frozen, struggling to breathe. Dad, I whispered, my voice breaking. Valentina, don't make a scene, he said. his eyes hard. Aaron has the next chapter. I couldn't process it. Aaron doesn't know a bill of lading from a packing slip. He hasn't attended a quarterly review in 2 years. I've been running operations, sales, and finance since Mom passed. And he's taking over. "You've done a fine job as an assistant," Dad said dismissively. "But you're a woman. Val, you're 34. You should be focusing on a husband, a family, not stressing over trucks and unions. You look tired, old." I couldn't hold it anymore. "I look tired because I'm doing his job and yours," I snapped, voice rising. Genesis leaned forward, eyes dripping with faux sympathy. "See? Exactly why a man is better suited for leadership. You're too emotional." "I am not hysterical," I shot back, standing up. My chair scraped against the floor. I was shaking. "I am the only reason this company isn't bankrupt who secured the Amazon contract. Me, who renegotiated fuel charges when oil spiked me." Dad's voice dropped, menacing. "Don't act like a martyr. You're an employee becoming insubordinate. In fact, Aaron and I have been discussing restructuring. Genesis has wonderful ideas, rebranding, making the company younger, fresher. Your management style is outdated, rigid." Aaron cleared his throat, trying to look authoritative, but he looked like a child playing dress up. "Yeah, Val, step aside. Clean slate. No bad vibes. You're firing me," I asked, words tasting like ash. "We're letting you go," Dad corrected. "Pack your things. Keys and laptop on my desk before noon tomorrow." I looked at them. My father, who I'd worshipped. My brother, who I'd protected. And Genesis, grinning like she'd won the lottery. The betrayal was visceral, physical. I whispered, almost to myself, cold and calm. "Fine. I'll go. Now." "Aaron," Dad said, spearing a potato, "tell us about this yacht trip." I turned, walked out. In the doorway, I heard Genesis whisper, loud enough for me to hear, "Finally. Now we can really start making money." And just like that, the headache in my skull vanished, replaced by a terrifying clarity. They thought they'd won. They were wrong. I stepped out of that dining room, the echoes of laughter and clinking glasses fading behind me, and the rain hit immediately. Fat, cold drops splattering against my coat and the windshield. Neon lights smeared across the wet streets as I drove, each red and green streak reflecting the chaos I had just left behind. I didn't cry. I think I was in shock. My mind was replaying every glance, every word, every subtle smirk, Genesis's little digs, Aaron's clueless grin, Dad's dismissive words. They were all looping in my head. But then something shifted. The panic, the hurt it drained out, leaving a sort of cold, numbing clarity. I realized, with a weird calm, that I wasn't powerless. I wasn't the victim. I had something they didn't even know I still had. My software, Velocit, the system I built from scratch, the one that had kept this company alive for years when Aaron and Dad were too distracted, too self-absorbed to care. The fleet, the routes, the manifests, it all ran on my code. I owned it, not the company, not the trucks, but the brain behind it all. And suddenly, I could see the play pulling into my apartment. I barely remembered the drive. The water on the windshield looked like a blur of fluorescent paint. Inside, silence hit me like a wall. My apartment had been mine for 2 years, but I'd barely spent any time there. My life had been the office, the warehouse, the back-to-back logistics nightmare. And now, the quiet was almost shocking, but also grounding. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water. My hands shook so badly I spilled half of it, letting the granite countertop drink the mess. I just watched the drops slide to the floor. Pack your things, Dad had said. Noon tomorrow. Keys, laptop, clear out. And it hit me this wasn't the end. This was the beginning. I walked into my home office, the one room that actually felt like mine. A high-powered machine hummed on the desk. I sat, hands on the keyboard, taking a breath. Coding was my solace. Logic, structure, everything made sense in code. If it worked, it worked. If it broke, it broke. There was no nepotism. There was no favoritism. Just me and the system. I booted it up. The hum of the fans was almost like a heartbeat. Steady, reliable. I logged into the cloud server where I hosted Velocit. They thought the company ran on magic, that the trucks knew where to go. The invoices wrote themselves. They were wrong. My mind wandered back 5 years. After Mom died, Dad fell apart. He retreated into scotch and country clubs, ignoring debt notices piling up on his desk. Aaron, fresh out of college, more interested in looking like a businessman than actually doing the work, bought flashy cars, hired his frat buddies, and tried turning the company into some luxury courier service for fashion brands. A disaster. Core industrial clients lost, payroll bouncing, the warehouse in revolt. I had been 29, offered a high-paying job in Seattle, ready to walk away. And yet, I didn't. I moved back home, liquidated my own 401k, fired Aaron's friends, kept the company alive inch by inch. I clawed it back with my own hands. That was my reality. That was my sacrifice. And now, all that work, all that sleepless nights, all those nights spent debugging code and negotiating contracts. And Dad and Aaron were just going to hand it to someone completely unqualified. Someone like Genesis. And here's the weird part. The more I thought about it, the calmer I became. The shock faded, replaced by something precise. Strategy, a plan. Velocit wasn't just a tool. It was the company's lifeline. Every truck, every client, every shipment depended on it, and the license mine. Leased to the company for a token dollar, revocable at will, with 24 hours notice. I opened the contract folder, staring at the screen. They wanted my laptop, my office, my presence. They could have it, but the engine? The system that stayed with me. I sat back, letting it all sink in. I wasn't thinking about revenge in some dramatic, furious way. Not yet. I was thinking like a general preparing for a siege. I would follow the letter of the law. I would pack my office, hand over the keys, look them in the eye, and let them feel victorious. Then, when the trucks were loaded and the week started, I would pull the plug. Not out of malice, but out of control, out of inevitability. And they wouldn't know it was coming until it was too late. My phone buzzed. Genesis. Hey, Val. Don't take it personally. We really think this is for the best. Maybe take some time to find yourself. We'll need your parking spot for my new Tesla. I read it twice, then deleted it. Find myself. Oh, I was about to find myself. And they were about to learn exactly what happens when you throw the captain overboard in the middle of a storm. I took a sip of tea, warmth spreading through me, grounding me. The adrenaline was settling into cold, deliberate calculation. Betrayal had its own clarity, and I realized something. This wasn't just about me. It was about the legacy, about the people who depended on this company, about the system I built that ran this world they so carelessly thought they could control. And slowly, methodically, I began to map it out. Not in anger, not in rage, in code, in contracts, in cold, unstoppable logic. They thought they had taken everything, but they forgot one crucial thing. You can fire the driver, but you can't fire the engine. Right after my mother passed away, everything fell apart. Dad just disappeared into his country club routine and expensive scotch, ignoring piles of overdue notices stacking up on his desk. Aaron, fresh out of college, barely scraped through thanks to his connections, decided he was going to run the company. But honestly, he didn't know a thing about logistics. He cared about appearances, cars, branding, all the shiny stuff that didn't actually move freight. He hired his frat buddies as consultants, tried pivoting the business into some luxury courier thing for fashion brands. And, well, disaster was guaranteed. 3 of our core industrial contracts vanished. Payroll bounced. Drivers were revolting. The bank was threatening foreclosure on the main warehouse. And me, I was 29, just offered a well-paying tech position in Seattle, ready to walk away and start my life. But I just couldn't let Dad's legacy die. Not after Mom's work, not after all the families depending on us for paychecks. So, I made a choice. I moved back into my childhood bedroom to save rent money. I fired Aaron's friends who were causing chaos, liquidated my own 401k to cover payroll for 2 months, renegotiated the bank debt, and slowly, inch by inch, I clawed the company back from the brink. It wasn't just work, it was a war, a battle against incompetence, negligence, and my own exhaustion. There were nights I didn't sleep, nights spent on the phone, negotiating, reasoning, managing a payroll system that could fail at any second. I became the safety net, the operational backbone. Every shipment, every invoice, every driver's route ran through me. And then there was Aaron. God, Aaron. Watching him stumble through leadership, clueless about contracts, unaware that forgetting a single hazardous material certification could tank us, was maddening. He had no idea. He hadn't even been present for quarterly reviews. Yet, Dad indulged him, and Genesis well. She wasn't much help either. That woman had charm and the ability to make herself indispensable in someone else's eyes. But she had zero clue about freight logistics. I had to clean up after both of them, constantly, while suppressing the urge to scream. So, I got smart. I realized relying on just my own effort wasn't sustainable. There was too much human error, too much chance for disaster. That's when I started building Velocit. I spent 6 months, nights and weekends, teaching myself Python and SQL in earnest. I had to. We couldn't afford a multi-million-dollar enterprise resource planning system like the big logistics firms. That was never an option. I coded everything from scratch. Dynamic routing that accounted for traffic and weather, automated invoicing, driver compliance tracking, predictive maintenance scheduling. You name it, I built it. Every line of code a lifeline for the company. I called it Velocit. It wasn't just software. It was the company's nervous system, its brain, its pulse. I leased it to the company for a single $1 a month, a formality, a legal token, because I'd learned early that keeping some control meant survival. If I handed over the IP rights, I'd be powerless. And Dad, He barely noticed. Aaron certainly didn't. They thought the trucks magically knew where to go. That invoices and fuel efficiency reports generated themselves. They were wrong. And every time I had to fix the mess Aaron created, my frustration grew. Not because he was incompetent, but because they believed incompetence could replace experience, sweat, and intellect. There were nights I would sit in that childhood bedroom, staring at spreadsheets, whiteboards, diagrams covering every wall, coffee growing cold next to me, and I'd just breathe, remind myself that this was temporary, that I could save this, I'd picture Mom, her hands moving over ledgers, her wisdom guiding me silently. That thought kept me going. I didn't just rebuild the company, I rebuilt the systems, the operational processes, the very backbone that kept 50 families afloat. It was relentless, exhausting, soul-draining, but it was also empowering, because I knew at the end of it, the company would survive, and it would be due to me. Dad eventually came back, trying to claim credit. He strolled into the office like a conquering hero, claiming he'd steered the ship through rough waters. I let him. I didn't care. Credit was irrelevant. The company's survival was all that mattered. And then Genesis appeared. She shadowed Aaron, her LinkedIn claiming she was some holistic brand architect, Instagram full of glamour shots and product promotions. From day one, she looked at me with disdain. I was invisible. I wore sensible pantsuits, hair in a bun, minimal makeup. She treated me like the help. She sniffed at my office, wrinkled her nose at stacks of shipping manifests, muttering about feng shui blocking abundance. My abundance comes from profit margins, I thought bitterly, watching her turn a critique into a claim of authority. Over months, she worked her manipulation, isolating Aaron, inflating his ego, convincing him he was the visionary leader the company needed, and quietly flattering Dad, playing into his insecurities about aging and gender roles. She was patient, insidious, strategic. I knew the moment she targeted Dad that she was the architect of my exile. Aaron was just a pawn, and I had to clean up their mess while they rearranged the boardroom like pieces on a chessboard. Meanwhile, Velocit became my fortress. Every shipment, every driver, every fuel calculation, every client manifest ran through my code. The system was tight, flawless, a fortress against chaos. I knew exactly how fragile the company would be in their hands, without me at the helm, and it became power. Not for ego, not for revenge, not yet, just control. I could let them have the office, the titles, the glory, but the lifeblood that remained under my command. Even with all this, I was human. The frustration bubbled inside me when Dad dismissed my years of hard work, when Aaron tried to pass himself off as capable, when Genesis laughed her way through decisions she had no right to influence. Yet, I reminded myself, calm, always calm, that every line of code I wrote, every late night spent negotiating and covering for their mistakes, every bit of personal sacrifice was a safety net for this company. Without me, the whole operation could collapse. And that realization became clarity, not vengeance, though vengeance would come later. I'd spent 6 years living in the office, the warehouse, coding into the nights, handling payroll, client contracts, logistics nightmares, and yet no one saw that. I'd sacrificed relationships, vacations, health, sleep, all for the people who depended on this company. And for a father who had slowly become more the chairman of a board than a parent. I resented it, yes. I hated it. Yes. But I survived it, and I built something that couldn't be ignored or undone. Velocit was more than software. It was a testament to every late night, every exhausted day, every moment of self-doubt I had pushed through. It ran on logic and precision. It didn't care about gender, family politics, or charm. It just worked. And as I thought about Genesis and Aaron, blissfully unaware of what I controlled, I realized they had taken the office, the chair, the title. But they had no idea that the company, its lifeblood, its entire operation, rested in my hands. And in that knowledge, I found a quiet, simmering power, ready for when the time came. Every sacrifice, every frustration, every sleepless night, it had all led to this moment. The moment where I could finally let the system I built do what I intended on my terms with complete precision. And God, it felt good. The next morning, I arrived at the office at exactly 8 a.m., rain still streaking the glass. Mike, the security guard, tipped his hat with that knowing look that said, "You've got this, Miss Valentina," and I nodded, a tight, controlled breath escaping me. The building smelled like wet concrete and coffee, and I already knew things were going to be different today. My nameplate was gone from the door, and inside, of course, Genesis was there, spinning in my ergonomic chair, tape measure in hand like she owned the place. "Oh, hey," she said, without standing. "Just measuring for the new lounge. Aaron needs a space to decompress." I looked at her, calm, but my jaw was tight. "Get out of my chair," I said, my voice low. "Technically, it's company property." She smirked. And here's the thing, I let her have the smirk, just for a second, measuring her arrogance. "It's 8:15 Genesis. I have 4 hours. Get up," I said. She rolled her eyes, but finally stood, smoothing down that overpriced skirt. "Fine. Hurry up. The painters are coming at 1. Tranquil beige," she added, like it mattered to me. I ignored it, focusing instead on the rhythm of my own breathing, the clarity settling over me. This was all just setup, observation, control, patience. Everything was in my hands, and I knew it. "Where's William?" I asked, refusing the word "Dad." She glanced at her nails, calm and predatory. "He's at the lawyer's office, transferring shares to Aaron. Big day, probably shouldn't stick around for that," she said, half smiling, half sneering. And then she paused, turned back to me, and said, "You know, Val, you should thank me. You were drowning here. You were never going to be the face of this company. You just don't have the sparkle." Sparkle, I thought, is not what keeps freight moving on time. I opened a cardboard box, pulling out my framed degree. "That's where you're wrong," I said quietly. She laughed, harsh, metallic. "Perception is reality, and the reality is you're out. We're in." And just like that, she left, her heels clicking against the floor. I watched her go, letting the sound mark the space she was leaving behind. I didn't pack much, just my degree, a photo of my mother, and my favorite mug. Everything else, all the binders, operational manuals, files it could stay. They wouldn't read them anyway. I took a deep breath, letting the calm wash over me. My mind was already 2 steps ahead, counting the moves, the contingencies, the leverage I held. At 11:55, I walked to the server room in the basement. Velocit wasn't just a cloud system, it had a local handshake protocol installed on a dedicated server rack. This was the heart, the brain, the nervous system. I didn't touch it like a vandal. No emotion, no malice. I logged into the admin console, disabled the auto-renew for the license key, and set the expiration to exactly follow the contract. Midnight tonight, and access would cease. Precision, legal, methodical, unavoidable. Keys went on top of the server rack, laptop, company phone. Everything else, I left them as they had requested. Back exit, avoiding the main lobby. The sound of corks popping from their celebratory champagne not touching me. I drove away slowly, deliberately. Hands steady on the wheel, mind ticking over the next steps. It was about timing, leverage, and showing them just enough to keep them thinking they were in control. Once home, I let the rain settle behind the window and sat at my personal desk. Gaming rig, yes. But more importantly, my coding sanctuary. Fingers hovered over the keyboard, and I drafted emails to Sarah, my intellectual property attorney. Every piece of evidence, every licensing document, every termination notice, they'd be ready. I wasn't just preparing for confrontation. I was setting up legal precision, control in the digital and legal sense, and they would have to navigate it on my terms. Texts started coming through, predictable, desperate. Genesis, Aaron, William. I ignored them all, each message, each missed call, a reminder of the leverage I held, the fact that they were dependent on a system they couldn't operate without me. I brewed tea, sat back, let the warmth ground me, calm, deliberate. Every move had been calculated to protect the people who depended on the company while simultaneously ensuring those who betrayed me couldn't undo what I had built. I wasn't angry now, not yet. I was focused, watching, planning. Every move Genesis and Aaron made, every small arrogance, every misstep became a data point, a variable I controlled. Velocity, the license, the compliance. It was all mine. And with it, I could orchestrate the next 24 hours like a chess game. Every piece falling exactly where I intended. And that, I thought, sipping the tea, is exactly how you win. By the time midnight rolled around, I was sitting alone in my apartment, the hum of my computer fans filling the silent room. Velocity's dashboard glowed blue, each indicator steady, calm, almost serene. I knew what I had to do. Slowly, I began the process. The license renewal was disabled. The expiration timers set to follow the contract exactly. One by one, the system's nodes went offline. Driver manifests disconnected. Route optimization halted. Not a crash, not a bug obedience. I didn't feel triumph. Not really. Just a cold, steady sense of control. My phone buzzed. A text from Genesis. "Hey Val, don't take it personally. You'll find yourself parking spot needed for my new Tesla." I stared at it, read it twice, then deleted it. Find myself. They had no idea what was coming. Then came another notification from Elas. Our night shift dispatcher. "Miss Val, the screens just went black. All of them. Drivers are calling. They can't access digital manifests. Tablets are bricked. Is this an update?" I didn't reply. If I did, I'd be implicating myself. Helping them now would mean I was still an employee, still responsible. I put the phone on, do not disturb, sipped my tea, and let the quiet settle. Hours passed. By 7, my phone was a wall of missed calls. 14 from William, 22 from Aaron, 3 from a number I didn't recognize. Probably Genesis. I made breakfast. coffee, eggs, toast, and just watch the rain lash against the window. For a decade, Mondays had been a blur of deadlines, caffeine, and adrenaline. Today, silence, a strange, deafening quiet. Mine to claim. Finally, at 8:30, I picked up a call, not William, not Aaron. I called the State Department of Transportation, my voice steady. Good morning, this is Valentina Miller. I'm updating the registered safety officer for Miller Logistics, number 894420. They confirmed. I formally resigned as the Hazardous Materials Safety Director and Compliance Officer. Without me, their hazmat permit would automatically suspend in 24 hours. Click, second trap in place. I leaned back. The software was the brain, the certification, the blood. Without both, they couldn't move their biggest client's freight legally. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the siege commander. That thought kept running through my head. Not cold for the sake of cruelty, cold because clarity was required. Every action measured, every step strategic. Then came the pounding on my door, 9:15 a.m. Aggressive, desperate. Valentina, open this door. I know you're in there. Aaron's voice, soaked from the rain, frantic. I smoothed my shirt, approached the door, and peeked through the peephole. Red-faced, hair wet, suit clinging. Behind him, William, pale, umbrella in hand. I unlocked the deadbolt just enough to speak. What do you want? You hacked us. Wipe the servers. Everything's gone. Trucks are in the yard. Amazon is calling Dad. Aaron yelled. I leaned against the door. Casually. I didn't hack anything. The data is safe. William's face went pale, panic seeping in. Fix it, Valentina. Now this is costing us thousands by the hour. I can't fix it, I said, calm, detached. I don't work for Miller Logistics. Remember, I was fired, told to pack my things. Don't play games with me. William's voice cracked. You sabotaged company property. Criminal. I let it hang. The computers are yours. The trucks are yours. But the software, it belongs to me. Aaron blinked. Confusion, disbelief, creeping panic. It's on our servers, he stammered. No, your servers. Under a licensing agreement you signed 5 years ago. Monthly, revocable at will. You probably didn't read it, you were too busy at the country club. I said, deliberate, measured. His edge fell. Whining crept in. Turn it back on. Valentina Genesis is freaking out. Drivers threatening to walk. We don't know who's carrying what. Sounds like a CEO problem, I said, calm, sipping my tea. Not gloating, not celebrating, just observing every missed call, every frantic knock. Every dispatcher panic was proof I held the leverage. The siege commander, detached, calculated, in control. And they were learning, slowly, painfully, that no amount of anger, panic, or entitlement could override the engine that had always run the company. The morning of the driver appreciation barbecue, I woke with a sense of focus that felt almost alien after the chaos of the last few days. The rain had cleared, leaving the city slick and gray, streets glinting under the pale sunlight. I grabbed the thick manila envelope from the passenger seat, the weapon Sarah had prepared for me, and checked it again. Bank statements, mugshots, vendor lists, financial transfers, criminal records. Everything Genesis had tried to hide was here. And for the first time in years, I felt the scale tipping in my favor. Walking up to the security gate, Mike gave me a nod, a flicker of relief in his tired eyes. No questions, no. ID, just respect. Give him hell. Miss Valentina, he muttered under his breath. I didn't smile. I nodded, letting the silence weigh heavy between us. The warehouse lot stretched before me, gravel crunching under my shoes. Smells of burnt charcoal drifting from the staging area where the barbecue was setting up. Usually, it was warm, familiar, almost comforting. Today, it felt like a battlefield. I parked next to Aaron's obnoxious new sports car, the one he had leased to prove status rather than competence. He hadn't even seen me yet, hadn't realized I had returned. Walking toward the stage, I noticed the drivers and warehouse staff huddled in tight groups, whispering, their arms crossed. They looked tense, wary, their eyes flicked between each other and the stage, calculating, confused. They had no idea what was coming. On the makeshift stage made of stacked pallets, William, Aaron, and Genesis were setting up. Genesis, radiant in a white designer dress that cost more than most of the men would make in months, held a microphone with an amplified voice, projecting cheeriness that didn't reach her eyes. We know there have been some hiccups with the new digital transition, she said, her fake smile flashing. But change is messy. That's just the universe clearing out the old energy to make room for abundance. Big plans are ahead, including a mindfulness lounge in the break room. I glanced around, catching the eye of a driver muttering about overtime pay. Another groaned about missing direct deposits. Whispers of frustration floated up from the back of the crowd. I felt a pang of responsibility. These were my people. They didn't deserve this chaos. William stepped forward, taking the mic from Genesis. His skin was gray, eyes sunken, voice shaking slightly. Now, boys, settle down. We're working on technical issues. It's complex. Migration, external bad actors, family. We stick together. His words were hollow. I could see the panic under the surface, the facade cracking. Aaron tried to assert himself, yelling, "We have plenty of capital. Dad built this company from nothing." But the crowd murmured, unsure. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the lot, walking toward the stage. The gravel crunched beneath me, deliberate, steady. Every eye turned. The murmurs died down as people sensed tension, a shift in energy. Actually, I called out, my voice clear across the lot, catching every ear. Mom built the books. I built the systems. He just built a mountain of debt in 3 days. The drivers parted like the Red Sea as I approached the stage. I didn't run. I didn't shout. I walked with the calm cadence of someone who had spent a decade navigating chaos, rebuilding, surviving. Valentina, William gasped, the mic dropping slightly. "What are you doing here?" he croaked. "She's trespassing," Genesis shrieked, pointing her manicured finger, eyes wide. Security Mike, get her out, Mike, standing by the gate, looked at me, then at the sky as if suddenly distracted. I stopped at the base of the stage, looking up at them. Genesis's eyes darted, calculating, searching for an exit. I raised the envelope. I didn't hack anything. I said, loud enough for every driver to hear. I just took back what was mine. Velocity is my intellectual property, and since I was fired, I took it with me. That's business. Aaron's face went red, veins bulging. "No, Aaron, I'm stopping you from driving it off a cliff," I continued, climbing the stage calmly. Genesis tried to block me, but I stepped around her as if she were a traffic cone. The envelope in my hand felt heavy, like the culmination of years of silent work, sweat, and sleepless nights. How many of you have received your direct deposit notifications for tomorrow? I asked, scanning the crowd. Silence. That's what I thought. And you won't, I said. As of 20 minutes ago, Amazon froze all vendor payments to Miller Logistics for breach of contract. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Murmurs swelled, a low, angry hum. I turned to William, who lunged forward, grabbing my arm. That's a lie, mister. Henderson wouldn't do that. They did, I said, shaking him off gently. Because you don't have a hazmat officer. Your trucks are idle, and he knows the ship is sinking. Genesis's mouth opened, searching for words, but she had none. Her confidence faltered. A crack in the carefully constructed persona. I opened the manila envelope. First, the bank statement Sarah had flagged. Transfers totaling $75,000 in the last 72 hours to Thorn Global Consulting for branding services. One line item, a few Canva logos, and a plan to paint the break room beige. Standard industry rates, Genesis's voice cracked. I'm a highly sick consultant. Really, I said, pulling out the next sheet, the mug shot, darker hair, less makeup, holding a placard. Plask County Sheriff. This is Jennifer Thornley, I read aloud. Arrested 2 years ago in Florida for wire fraud and operating a Ponzi scheme disguised as a life coaching academy. She pled down to a misdemeanor and probation. She's not a consultant, Dad. She's a predator, and she found the perfect prey. William stared, disbelief flickering across his face. He looked at Genesis, then back at the photo. The resemblance undeniable. Jennifer, he whispered, her mask shattered. Sneer replacing the love and light act. Oh, grow up, old man, she spat. You are begging to be fleeced. I want a legacy. I want a son to take over. You sidelined your boring, quote, workaholic daughter and let me in the front door. I didn't steal anything, you signed the checks. Aaron sank to a pallet, head in hands, weeping, not dignified, childlike, broken. William stood frozen, looking around at the drivers, their expressions a mix of contempt and pity, the arrogance, the false pride of Sunday dinner, gone. He looked at the empty spot where Genesis had stood, then at me, defeated, exhausted, terrified. Valentina, he croaked. The payroll, the Amazon contract, it's over, contract void at midnight. Payroll runs at 5 today. If the system isn't up, the bank won't process. You can't fix it? My voice was firm. Absolute. Not for you. Not as an employee. I will save it, but on my terms. Tears welled in William's eyes. Name it. 51% controlling interest. I become CEO effective immediately. You retire. No board seat. No veto power. Go to the lake house and stay there, I said. William nodded, tear trailing down his cheek. Aaron, red-eyed, sniffled. What about you start on the loading dock tomorrow? Shift begins at 4 a.m. Answer to the shift manager. 1 complaint, 1 late arrival. You're fired. I turned back to the crowd, opened the server room with Mike's help, and reinitialized the system. Fingers flying, encryption key entered, commands executed, lights flickered, then stabilized, phones pinged, drivers checked their devices, payroll hitting pending, cheers erupted, not for the company, for the engine, for the work behind the scenes that actually made everything run. I closed my laptop, didn't smile. I looked at my father one last time, stepped down, and walked into the crowd. This was justice, controlled, precise, and it felt right. Chaos managed, predator exposed, order restored, The next 6 months would be grueling, cleaning up Genesis's mess, recovering fraudulent payments, rebuilding morale. But for the first time, I wasn't just saving a company, I was reclaiming my life and my family's legacy. The morning after the driver appreciation barbecue, I woke up to an eerie quiet that felt almost foreign after the past week's whirlwind. The city outside my apartment was still wet from the rain, streets glinting in the morning sun. But the silence inside mirrored the calm I felt creeping over me. For the first time in what felt like years, the tension wasn't clawing at my chest. I had regained control, not just over the system, but over the company, over the chaos that had been consuming everyone else. And honestly, over myself. I started by setting the boundaries that had been ignored for far too long. I called William first. It was awkward at first, the kind of tension you can feel across the phone lines. "Dad," I began, keeping my voice calm, measured. "I'm CEO now. That means I make the decisions for this company. No more interfering. You retire. You go to the lake house and stay there. No board seat, no veto power. Period." There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing, swallowing, trying to adjust to a reality he hadn't prepared for. I could feel the weight of decades of family expectation and corporate tradition hanging between us. But I held my ground. Aaron came next. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I laid out the rules. "You start at the loading dock tomorrow, 4 a.m. Shift starts on time. You answer to the shift manager. 1 slip, 1 complaint, you're out. You want to stay in the family business. You earn it from the bottom. And yes, that includes learning everything from operations, sales, logistics, the stuff you skipped." He looked down at his hands, soft and uncalloused, and nodded. He understood, or at least he understood the gravity. There was no smugness left in him, just fear and reluctant acceptance. Good. That was the foundation. With them both on the same page, I turned my attention back to the systems. The first thing was Velocit, the brain of Miller Logistics. I logged in, checking the servers, tracing the pathways, making sure every node and every protocol was fully operational. My fingers flew across the keyboard almost instinctively. There's a rhythm to it. The hum of the fans, the glow of the monitors, the lines of code scrolling as if they were part of a symphony. I restored the license keys, reactivated automated routing, synced driver manifests. Within minutes, everything was coming back online, like breathing life into a patient who had been flatlined for too long. As the system hummed and screens flickered green, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. The trucks, the warehouses, the payroll, everything depended on this. And now, it was mine. Not just operationally, but legally. The IP, the proprietary system, the protocols I had painstakingly developed, all under my control. For the first time, the entire company ran exactly as it should, and I was the only one capable of keeping it that way. But control wasn't just technical, it was human. I had to rebuild the trust and morale of the employees, the men and women who had worked tirelessly under chaos, confusion, and mismanagement. Mike, the security guard who had always been a quiet anchor, gave me a knowing nod when he saw me in the office. The drivers were cautious but attentive, checking their devices, realizing that the payroll and routing were stable again. Small reassurances, smiles, and nods started spreading across the room. People were still wary of family politics, but they were beginning to understand that the ship wasn't sinking anymore. I'd given them the tools to work, and that was the first step toward rebuilding confidence. The legal side was next. I spent hours reviewing contracts, vendor lists, and financial transactions, identifying the transfers made to Genesis, the fraudulent rebranding payments, the shell companies. I coordinated with Sarah, the attorney, to prepare the necessary cease and assist notices, recover funds, and ensure that any future attempts at financial manipulation would be blocked. Every signature, every clause I had written years ago now acted as armor, giving me leverage where none had existed before. My hands moved quickly, but there was a calm precision in each action, a deliberate detachment that allowed me to make decisions without emotional interference. This wasn't revenge for the sake of anger. It was protection for the company, for the employees, for the legacy my mother had left. Each email sent, each legal document filed was a statement. I wasn't just cleaning up chaos. I was creating order, rebuilding trust, and asserting authority. And there was satisfaction in that quiet, internal, almost imperceptible, but deeply grounding. It wasn't about gloating over Aaron or William or Genesis. It was about doing what had to be done to stabilize a company that had been on the brink of collapse. Mid-morning, I walked the warehouse floors, checking in with the managers, observing the teams as they adapted to the restored systems. Faces that had been tense, frustrated, or fearful were slowly shifting toward cautious optimism. A driver approached me, hesitant. "Miss Valentina, everything's working. Payroll, routes, it's all fine." I nodded, not smiling, just acknowledging the relief in his voice. These were the moments that mattered. Not the confrontation, not the legal maneuvering, but the practical relief that the company could function again. That was real. Aaron was relegated to the loading dock, as promised. I watched him follow instructions, clumsy and awkward, fumbling with logistics he had previously ignored. There was no cruelty in this. I wasn't punishing him for his incompetence. I was teaching accountability. It was difficult, slow, and sometimes frustrating, but necessary. And Genesis, well, she was gone, out of the office, out of control, unable to manipulate or interfere. The predator was no longer in the nest. Over the next few days, I created detailed plans for rebuilding operational protocols, conducting training sessions, and establishing checkpoints to prevent similar disruptions in the future. I set up regular meetings with the warehouse managers, drivers, and office staff to ensure open communication. There were still tense moments, whispers of skepticism, but the foundation was solid. The company was no longer at the mercy of familial dysfunction or inexperienced leadership. Every action I took reinforced the reality that Miller Logistics was stable, efficient, and under competent control. I also took time for reflection, sitting in my office, looking out over the city. I realized the scope of what I had accomplished. I had turned the tables without throwing the company into chaos. I had exposed the fraud, set boundaries, and restored order while maintaining legal and operational integrity. That sense of measured, methodical victory, quiet, almost meditative, was deeply satisfying. The relief wasn't flashy or dramatic. It was rooted in knowing that the right decisions had been made and executed correctly. By the end of the first week, the company had regained momentum. Trucks were moving efficiently, payroll processed on time, and the employees' confidence was returning. Aaron was learning accountability in real time. William stayed at the lake house as instructed, and the shadow of Genesis's interference had vanished. I finally allowed myself to sit back. A brief moment of stillness, reflecting on the years of hard work, sacrifice, and relentless problem solving that had brought me here. It hadn't been easy. It had been exhausting, frustrating, and at times almost unbearable, but the results spoke for themselves. The sense of closure was quiet but profound. I had reclaimed authority, re-established operational stability, protected the livelihoods of the employees, and safeguarded the company my mother had helped build. I had asserted boundaries, exposed the fraud, and set a new precedent for what accountability looked like within the family. The legal matters would continue, but the immediate crisis was over. The company could now thrive under competent leadership, and I could finally feel that rare, unshakable satisfaction of a job executed with precision, integrity, and strategic patience. Sitting at my desk, I looked around the office, functional, orderly, alive with activity, the hum of computers, the chatter of employees, the steady rhythm of a company finally running as it should. It was a melody of order after years of chaos. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the warmth spread through me, grounding me in the knowledge that the company, the legacy, and the people were safe. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to acknowledge it. I had done it. I had not only survived betrayal and incompetence, but I had also taken control, restored order, and laid the groundwork for a future that honored the work of the past while securing the integrity of the company for years to come. This was victory. Not flashy or loud, but complete, satisfying, and real. And that's how it all went down. Years of hard work, patience, and a little quiet cunning turned betrayal into victory. I didn't just reclaim a company, I reclaimed control, order, and respect. It wasn't easy, but sometimes doing the right thing means standing firm and thinking 3 steps ahead. If you enjoyed seeing this high-stakes family drama unfold and want more stories where resilience and smarts win the day, stick around, hit like, and subscribe. You won't want to miss what's next.